Welcome to the world of Spike.
Spike Milligan is an interterrestrial person. He's not of this world. He's a gift from heaven.
It was an act of genius. He just produced that stuff from nowhere except his own mind.
I think when we look back over the mid-20th century, Spike Milligan has to be seen, quite apart from his own performances, but as a creator of genius.
Tonight, a tribute to the late Sir Edward Elgar, whose favourite instrument was the B-flat garden hose, for which he wrote many great pieces, including Underneath the Armpits, Do My Names Away. Right.
Spike Milligan revolutionised comedy, first on radio and then on television. Yet he was never happy to rest on his laurels, seemingly driven by an insatiable need to write and perform, whatever the cost.
Spike lives in his head. Spike actually lives in his head. And sometimes the ideas and the writing are just too much. They come too fast.
I've got this photograph of you. It's in my head, and it won't ever fade away.
Yet Spike, the original workaholic, has always maintained that all he wanted to do was relax, make music, and talk to the animals.
I love you. Oh.
For 30 years, families sat down together to listen to a BBC that was warm, safe, and reassuring.
Well, thank you, Reginald. Well, after welcoming you to the BBC, may I welcome you to the Goon Show and introduce you to the Goon!
But when Spike exploded onto the airwaves in 1951, he broke the mould forever.
Here, Echoes, hold these 3 red sticks of dynamite.
Oh, wait. One of these isn't a stick of dynamite.
You sure about that, Echoes?
One of them was a stick of Blackpool rock. Of course I'm sure. Just a minute.
My ears went, boing.
Of course I could be wrong, you know.
And I thought, that's for us, that's ours. That's why my dad doesn't get it. It's not for him. It's for us.
He's blown all his teeth out of his old cake. What funny looking on. You running swine, you. While I was laughing, you dropped a stick of dynamite down my trousers and exposed my secret part.
My father would look at the set as though there was something mechanically wrong with it. He would walk out and leaving me to think, this is mine, you know, this is all mine.
The Goons included Peter Sellers, Michael Bentine and Harry Seacombe. But the show was pure Spike.
He took the conventions of radio and just went a little bit further, just overplayed them slightly for comedy effect.
Captain Seacombe. Yes. Is this the right road to Hungary? Yes. Then why do we keep galloping round and round this room?
Sound effects were Spike's obsession.
He worked and worked to get these sound effects, and he invented like a whole new understanding of what sound effects could do on radio.
You would have, which was very audacious then, would have a sort of 45 seconds of silence when someone had knocked on a door. Hello, Min, I'm just coming. I'll come down and let you in. And there'd be this long, long silence. Just footsteps. Then they come to the door. Hello, let me know. I'll go and get the key. And then there'd be another 45 seconds while we went upstairs again. This was just brilliant, you know. And just footsteps and silence. And I would remember biting the side of my armchair. I thought it was so incredibly funny.
Each week brought a new and ever more extraordinary plot, but the same cast of characters.
That simply hadn't occurred before. A world with strange, sort of Conan Doyle-like villains, like Griptype Thin, and Count Jim's steaming thighs Moriarty, and this extraordinary Bloodknock.
But Eccles was the nation's favourite.
Oh, the famous Eccles. Oh, the famous Eccles. We can all do that, you know, this generation.
I heard that. And let me tell you, it ain't looks that count, it's what you got up here that matters. What have you got up there? Nothing.
And a lot, but it was pathetic. That was nothing. You know, start off all strong and defiant, and then get a bit sort of feeble.
No one was immune from goon mania. Bluebottle was the perfect role model for a young Prince Charles.
Just because you got bigger legs than I have, it's all your fault.
Not my fault.
See?
I charge
It is your fault.
You don't remember.
Do.
You get it all wrong.
No, it's your fault.
Only 6 years since the war, barrack room boardiness was still fresh in Spike's mind.
Spike loved being subversive. They had a character called Hugh Jampton. Hugh Jampton. Well, of course, in army terms, it was Huge Hampton, a thing to be cited in the showers, you know.
Oh, presenting to you, Captain Hugh Jampton to tell a tale of India.
The producer was Pat Dixon. Now, Pat was very naive in many respects, and he had no idea why we got such a big laugh when this name was mentioned. So we used to say, hey, he's a friend of ours in the army. Oh, yes, I see, yes. And then it wasn't until, as I say, about 3 or 4 weeks that one of the engineers told me what it really meant, and he went berserk.
By the time he married June Marlowe in 1952, Spike was a star. But the pressure of writing the show single-handedly was taking its toll.
Peter and I, and Mike in the beginning, were able to go off and do our own thing in the theatres or the films or whatever we were doing. And the Goon Show was a bit of fun on the Sunday. And for Spike, it wasn't a bit of fun on the Sunday. It was a long, hard slog. So he really suffered. I mean, his marriage suffered and his health suffered.
He used to suddenly lock himself in his office and he wouldn't emerge for about 3 days. He got to such an extent of not wishing to meet people that he used to, he'd be in the office and he'd send a telegram from his office to the desk downstairs asking if they'd go and get him some fish and chips. Because he would not talk to anybody directly, you know.
Shortly after the birth of his first baby, Spike had a breakdown. He was taken to a psychiatric hospital, an experience he was to reconstruct for a television documentary many years later.
I remember seeing a film, I was a television critic, and he says they put me deliberately in a room where you could hear outside the window them emptying all the dustbins every morning. And they did it on purpose. They put me there so that I would be driven even madder by the dustbins.
Stop that bloody noise! Insensitive bastards.
Spike believed his mental illness had its roots in the battle fatigue he suffered in the war. His response to his breakdown was typical. He wrote about it.
Even when he was in those places, he wrote some marvellous Goon Show scripts. And of course he also wrote a lot of good poetry.
The pain is too much. 1,000 barbed winters are growing in my head, and in my ears the sound of the coming dead. All seasons, all same, all living, all pain. No opiate to lock still my senses. Only left the body-locked tenses.
Many of his poems really are about his manic depression, really, coming to terms with himself. And some very outspoken, some very raw. I think some of the poems are almost therapeutic.
I shall resist with all my might the artificial glass of night.
In time, Spike made a full recovery and returned to write another 150 successful episodes of The Goons.
His self-discipline pulls him through most things. The building can be on fire, and if he's writing, well, the building's on fire. It doesn't affect him. He goes on doing his writing, you know. But that's discipline.